just being intentional about your day.
Yeah.
That's a super huge part of your success. If you're experiencing some success, you talk to a lot of these people who are doing good numbers and they have a great business. They have a system and they stick with it, and they're very intentional about what they spend their time on. And for us realtors who have to be, plan ahead, 3 months ago is, you get to see what you did 3 months ago today.
Yeah.
You can see what you did 2 months ago today. And if you're not disciplined enough to do, the things that are going to get you business in the future, it's going to be really hard for you to navigate when the market is good and when the market is down. And, it's just going to be really hard for you to have any bit of consistency in your business.
Yeah.
So for, like we said, you got to parent all the time. You got to make sure that you're available. You got to be an agent all the time and make sure you're available as well. And I think that's one of the separators for, people who just get in and think it's going to be a bunch of money. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. You got to be intentional about your day.
Well, boom, here we are. We're going to skip all the pleasantries and intros and all that kind of fun stuff. I'll obviously introduce you here, but we're just going to jump right into it. I don't have any play on words today or freaking pop puns or whatever it is.
Sponsored by Tropicana this episode. We're not, just in case Tropicana's watching.
Just in case they're watching.
Not, but we would love to. We have your product. We drink it regularly for orange juice in the morning. So
they want to get to our tens and tens of listeners.
Yeah. We'll have our people reach out to your people, Tropicana.
All right. Well, we are back. This is Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast. I am your host, Mike Mills, back from a probably 60-day hiatus at least, and got my good buddy Conrad Jackson here with me, local DFW realtor, builder, investor, educator, basketball coach, family man. I mean, he does all the things. I think I always thought that I had a lot of shit that I did, but then I met you and I realized that I'm pretty useless when it comes to
I don't know, man. You had your time, especially with the youth sports. You had a whole organization. I coached 2 teams, so it's very minuscule what my work is versus what you're doing for years. We appreciate that too. My kids played in that league as well. So but at the end of the day, yes, I don't get a lot of sleep. My wife gets less sleep because I get more sleep than she does, and she's not happy about it. And I'm it is what it is.
Yes. Yeah. Well, when you have kids that are young and they're in the midst of it and you're doing stuff, it's that my favorite saying I tell people all the time, it's like the days are really, really long, but the years are really, really short. And that stuff goes by quick, and I went from coaching both of my kids when they were 5 years old in soccer and basketball and football and baseball and whatever. And now my daughter's 17, about to graduate from high school next year, going off to college. And, my son's a freshman, about to start driving, which is terrifying in and of itself. So not real fired up about where things are headed. My wife and I are going to have to come up with a really good hobby sometime soon to get over this stuff.
Yeah, do what you got to do. I understand. I'm in the thick of it. So I'll let you, if ever you want to get back in and take my place for about a month or so, feel free to tap in. I'm good.
I joke that that once my kids leave, I'm going to have to start coaching at the YMCA or something.
What you got to do, man. I got spots. We got teams that need to coach. So if you want to come on. I
got to stay with the younger ones because I know more about stuff than they do. Once I get to about 14, that's where my competence starts to fall off a little bit. So try to keep it minimum.
At that point, the team is just conditioning. We're not doing plays anymore. We're just conditioning because y'all know more about basketball than I do. So let's just get this up and down going.
Exactly. All right. Well, let's jump into a couple things because we are in 2025 and, we are all hoping that at least as far as real estate is concerned this year, that we see a turnaround. I don't know, at this point, if we will or we won't. Everything's kind of speculation. It doesn't look like there's going to be any kind of dramatic shifts, but you never know where the world takes you. So it's kind of hard to, say for sure what's going to happen. But I wanted to start by just giving you a couple statistics that really always jump out to me when it comes to, at least on a national level. So in 2023, we had 4.09 million existing homes, not new builds, but existing homes that were sold. And that's a 17% decline from 2022. Okay. And in 2024, they went down even more. They dropped down to 4.06 million, which was the lowest level that we've had since 1995. Okay. In 1995, there were 3.8 million sales. All right. That's how far it's fallen. And by the way, population's quite a bit higher since then because that's 30 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So just to give everybody an idea, before the pandemic, all right, now we don't count that because those 3 years were just insane. So this is like normal market stuff. So before the pandemic, the sales ranged anywhere between like 5.5 to 6 million per year.
Yeah.
Okay. From 2015 to 2019.
Okay.
And at the peak in 2021, there was 6.1 million, which was obviously,
Yeah.
when things were going crazy.
Yeah.
So when you hear stuff like that and you're a realtor, doing this job, like what does that bring to your head?
I mean, for me, honestly, it just makes me more cognizant of the work that I got to do on a daily basis, man, because you just don't know when when the tap gets turned off. Right. And so I think that's what we saw. We saw crazy numbers where people didn't know anything about real estate and were selling tons of houses in the year, their first year, their second year, their third year. You saw people who were making income and getting income from the government assisted, money that you were getting in your household and starting businesses and buying things and upgrading their lifestyles and things like that. And it was basically like throwing gasoline on the fire. And so everybody thought that time would last forever. And it came to an end.
Yeah.
And when it came to an end, it made people really, understand, hey, maybe I'm not as good at my job as a real estate agent.
Hey, I had that. I mean, hell, man,
Yeah.
I thought I was amazing, and all of a sudden I was like, man, maybe I'm not as good at this as I
I
thought.
mean, myself included,
Yeah.
houses selling and they stop selling and you're like, well, do I even know how to sell this house anymore? Maybe I
Yeah.
should go back to the basics. And so I think as a realtor, it just makes you understand even more clearly that you got to keep working in the good times and the bad. You cannot get lazy. And that's one thing that I was guilty of. I think it's one thing that a lot of people were guilty of on the real estate side. And by the time we figured out, hey, the tap has kind of been turned off,
Yeah.
it was too late. We had already not reached out and prospected for the previous 3 months or 6 months or whatever, and so now our pipeline was running dry.
Well, it's funny when you said government assistance. I think that is a great term for what happened because and when people say government, they're thinking like the stimulus checks and the PPP loans and all that kind of stuff. But in our industry, I don't think people realize how much quote government assisted we were in that period.
Yeah.
Only from a standpoint of when you look at where the rates went.
Yeah.
When they went from, the average rate, by the way, just so everybody knows, the average market interest rate, I got it right here from where'd it go? Sorry. In 2023, the average was 7.79% in October, and that's the highest since 2000. Okay. But during that period of time in 2021, it averaged at 3%.
Yeah.
So there was a period of time between 2000 and say 2020 where interest rates were somewhere in the neighborhood of 4 to 6%.
Yeah.
But even then, because we forget that was right after the great financial crisis. And what a lot of people don't realize is when you look at interest rates and what the Fed was doing, it wasn't that they cut the Fed rate dramatically. It was that they were buying mortgage-backed securities. It's called QE, where they were purchasing bonds, mortgage bonds on the secondary market to artificially drive rates down, right? It wasn't, I mean, don't get me wrong, cutting the rates down to zero, which is what they did, obviously had an impact on interest rates on the whole.
Yeah.
But when it came to mortgages specifically, it was the fact that they were buying billions of mortgage-backed securities. So they were just creating artificial demand. So you literally had, and I know the Fed's not the government mostly, but it's still a function of what we do in our country. And that entity was artificially keeping rates incredibly low, which was driving demand for all assets, not just real estate, but everything, and making it to where the prices were just going through the roof because there was just so much, it wasn't like I used to say it all the time. It's not free money, but it's pretty close, right? It's pretty close. So it's one of those things where that was like a government assisted income. So if you were a real estate professional, or if you were a realtor, if you were an investor, if you were a mortgage banker, if you were a title rep, hell, if you were an insurance agent, anybody that was in the world of real estate, inspectors, appraisers, all of these people, we were all basically living on some version of government assistance.
Absolutely.
For 3 years.
Everybody, I won't say everybody, but most people who were, diligent and had a decent business were having their best years of their career.
Yeah.
And that wasn't the case for everybody, but for the majority, I feel like that I talked to, at least in my small circle, everybody was like, hey, this is great, and it changed when we all thought, hey, it's going to keep going. It's going to keep going. Then it changed.
Yeah.
And then now we were kind of left holding the bag like, oh man, now what do we do now? And so you kind of have to get back to the basics. And I know that's what we did. We got back to the basics, and it was hopefully we have scraped the bottom of that barrel and moved on. I don't know that, but I can tell you that business now is a lot better than it was 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I mean, I've experienced the same thing, but it's, it's kind of like, when you go from, not having a drop of water for 2 weeks and then getting a thimble full, you're like, we're living the high life. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it's a challenge. Because, I think in our industry as a whole that we all got real comfortable with the money flowing in. And even I consider myself to be a very reasonable, practical person when it comes to money. I knew, or I felt confident that that what we were going through in 2021 and 2022, 2021, that whole period was not going to be sustainable. Like it wasn't going to continue.
Sure.
I knew that, right? You knew that.
Yeah.
I think we knew that. But did we fully adjust our lifestyle to match that? I mean, we saved a lot of money. We did fine, which is why we were able to make it through.
Sure.
But at the same time,
if you go back, there were things you would do differently.
Yes. Yes.
I know for me, absolutely that holds true.
Yeah. Because you make decisions based off of where you think things are, where they're headed, how much you have in the bank. And then you don't realize how fast when the spigot gets turned off, how bad that hurts.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, there was a lot of, the one thing I didn't look up is I don't have the numbers for NAR and I don't have the numbers. I do know as far as mortgage bankers are concerned, we lost over half our people in the last 2 years.
I believe it.
Gone. And then I saw something the other day. I didn't research the validity because, these days you can't believe everything you read online.
Yeah.
But I saw something like 70% of realtors didn't have or had one transaction or fewer. Last year.
Yeah.
Like 70%.
Well, I mean, that sounds startling, but that's not uncommon.
Right.
For a high number of realtors. Now, 70%, that's a little high. But, majority of realtors only sell one house a year. That's usually been the trend.
That is
year
true.
over year.
Yes. Yes.
So if you have one that is doing way more than that, one a month, a couple a month, a bunch a month, then you need to hold on to them because they're probably, somewhat decent at their job. But yeah, man, I hindsight is 2020.
Yeah.
We are I say 2020 as far as the vision as opposed to the year. But when you look back, you're like, all right, look, man, I got to do better in the times where money is flowing, business is good. We saw a dramatic shift in our business in the way that bankers were talking to us.
Okay.
In those years where, we do a lot of investments, we do a lot of new construction, we do a lot of construction loans, things like that, rehab loans. The bankers were just, hey, what do you need? Give me whatever you need. Send me the cost estimate. I'll make sure that I get you what you need so you can get this project off the ground. You want to do 2 more, do 2 more. You want to do 4 more, do 4 more. And when everything shifted,
that changed.
Those conversations were, the Mr. Jacksons and all that turned into, hey, man, it went from Mr. Jackson to, hey, man, we need this. We need this now. We're not going to be able to do this for you. Matter of fact, we need this document. We need this extra verification. We need this. We need that. And when we were asking for things, it was a lot harder. The tone changed across, I feel like, all the financial institutions. And that was just another indicator of like, hey, man, we got to be prepared for this because it's not going to be great forever. And when it's good, you got to make plans for the times that it's bad.
Yeah.
It changed on us in the drop of a dime, and it affected our business. It affected the amount of houses that I could put out on new construction routes and plans. It affected, I was in the middle of a really big development, still am, and the bank called our note due and said, hey, we need to do this. We need you to pay this right now, And so it's like, we got to figure this out.
Yeah.
And so luckily for us, we figured it out and we're able to get through that. But,
that'll make your butt pucker up a little bit.
Man, let me tell you, driving down the street and it's like, all right, everybody's like, how's it going? My general response is like, it's good.
Good.
Those days I was like,
I don't know.
I've been better.
Better days.
And just to grasp the scale of, a development, we were talking about, 70 plus homes, this is a big project with millions of dollars.
Yeah.
We have a lot of money on the line and the bank's like, hey, yeah, we need you to pay this off.
Yeah. Well, there's this. I think there's a misconception to some extent that the banking has tightened up. It hasn't. So just so we're clear, the like on a standard mortgage, like getting a loan,
Yeah.
there's no rules that have changed, right?
Right.
Nothing has changed. They haven't adjusted any requirements for credit or income or anything,
Yeah.
right? But what you are seeing, and this is where banks are starting to get a little tighter in requirements. So if you've bought a home in the last 12 months, you may have felt like you were drugged through the ringer a little bit more than maybe
Yeah.
somebody 2 or 3 years ago. And it's not because anything's changed per se, except for the fact that banks now, independent banks, whatever, they are now being held to a higher standard by
Yeah.
these insuring entities like
Yeah.
Fannie, Freddie, HUD, VA. So what happens is when the money's flowing and loans are coming in, those entities, and you insure your loan with them, and they're basically checking your work to make sure you underwrote the loan according to
Mhm.
their guidelines. When that happens, and there's a lot of loans coming in, there's only so many people, and so things just like, yeah, this looks good, yeah, this looks good, yeah, this
Yeah.
looks good, right? Well, once that slows down, and then people start maybe having some issues paying, or there are other considerations. Well, now they've, HUD has overflow of employees that need stuff to do.
Yeah.
And so they're like, hey, why don't we dig into these loans that we did 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and let's start seeing if there's anything that we missed, because they can come back on a bank and say, hey, look, you didn't verify this
Mhm.
correctly, or this is the wrong documentation for this, or we found this other thing on the credit that you didn't
Yeah.
see. Now this is your loan. Now we're not keeping it, or we're gonna penalize you for it.
Yeah. And on that note, I've gotten I maybe in the last 6 months, I've probably gotten 3 letters from 3 different banks saying, hey, we need you to verify these particular transactions just to make sure that our records are updated and kept.
Yeah.
And I know it's because Big Brother's looking over their shoulder like, hey, we ain't gonna pay you until this gets figured out.
Yes.
So
Yes.
it trickles down to the consumer at some extent as well. So
Yeah.
that's a real
Well,
thing.
and even on our end, like I get frustrated, when we go through underwriting and stuff, because they're getting so granular on things
Yeah.
to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And like part of me obviously understands it. Like I get
Yeah.
it from a business side of things, but in the customer service and the relationship side of things, it makes it that much harder
Yeah.
because like for me working with realtor partners, they would call, we'd get the loan going, it'd be like smooth, easy.
Mhm.
Borrower's like, no problem. And then we're like, okay, we got to fix this thing and I got to adjust this thing now. It's like, why did this? Is there something wrong with this? Like, no,
Yeah.
there's not anything wrong with this person per se. It's just now I have a few more hoops. I've got to be extra sure
Yeah.
on a few more things, get a few more notes in the file, whatever
Yeah.
it may be, because when we ship this off to Fannie or when we send it off to HUD to give us our insurance policy,
Yeah.
they're going to go through it with a fine tooth comb. And if we miss anything,
Yeah.
we're on the hook for it.
Yeah.
So like, again, my point of that is just that like lending hasn't gotten tighter in the regards that any regulations or rules have changed.
Yeah.
It's just they're paying more attention. It's
Yeah.
kind of like in the NBA, right? It's like a foul's a foul's a foul. But when you get to the finals, maybe it's a little looser. And when you get into,
Yeah.
if you're a rookie, you might get called for a few more fouls than otherwise, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you're like you said, when money's flowing, it's good. But when it's not, then people have attention to detail and they pay attention to detail and they're looking over their shoulder. They're looking over everything to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And you can't get around it, man, especially if you're dealing with the banking industry on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And in our industry, man, we deal a lot with the banks and they have to make sure that their stuff is right. Otherwise, you don't get to continue to bank there or do business with them.
Yeah. I just thought of this, and this is kind of a little bit off topic, but I'm curious your thoughts, because we joke about internally in the industry, we joke about this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
But why does it seem like every buyer or seller, when they decide to buy a house, they are changing jobs, they are going out of town on vacation, they are buying new stuff, they are changing their corporation setup 6 months prior? Like I know life happens, but golly, man, like it's just been a rash of that stuff lately.
It's one of those things where it's like I've had people like, hey, yeah, we've got this all worked out and we finally got these people to agree, and yeah, we can't close on that day because we're going on a cruise. But we're not just going on a cruise, we're going on a cruise to Thailand.
Right.
It's like what
No internet connection.
Why?
We're gonna be gone for 6 months.
You knew 3 months ago you were trying to buy a house at this time.
Oh,
why are you going to Thailand? And it's just it's one of those things, man. I really wish that there was like, when people decided, hey, we're gonna book this cruise at the same time that we're gonna go out, we're gonna close on our dream home that we've been waiting for, and we finally got the deal, that they would also remember to send a referral to like 5 people for me at the same time. Because it's like, hey man, they can book that cruise at the drop of a dime. No, and they always forget about mentioning that cruise.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Until we've solidified the close
Yeah.
date, or solidified a date that they have to be present for some things. Like,
Yes.
oh yeah, by the way, we're gonna be out of the country for that.
Well,
And we'll be gone for 2 weeks. Who does that?
that's like on lending side, because again, we're just talking gripes here because it's the start of 2025. Is we always
do
get
a whole segment on this.
we get the title company. We've got everything done, basically ready to go. We're almost there, and they're like, "Oh, it's a mail out. We're gonna need this like 2 days in advance." And you're like, okay, well,
or I don't remember telling you this, but I'm not technically divorced.
right.
Does that count? We're separated,
Yes,
right? Like,
yes,
what?
Yes.
What do you mean?
Yes. Yeah. It's a never ending. It's like we went from, my processor and I were joking about this the other day with Derek. We went from doing, say, 20 loans a month, where they were difficult because you're doing 20 loans a month, to doing like 5 to 10, but they're just as hard.
Yeah.
Like you're doing just as much work. You're like, wait a minute, we were doing double the loans and I feel like I'm doing just the same amount of work, because everything is just that much harder, right? It's just a little bit more difficult to get it through. And I think, that's something as when we, as realtors and lenders, when we deal with our clients nowadays, especially, we have to relay that to them.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this isn't easy in that it's not as because people take it personal. It's like, well, my credit this and I got this income, and why would it be? It's like, look, it's not you necessarily, right? And your thing, but you have 2 companies that you own. Your, wife just started a new commission job. You guys just moved 2 months ago. You have 5 bank accounts that you move money in and around all the time. Like, I get it. Your credit's great. You make plenty of money, but in your bank account every month it's there, but you got a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to fit everybody into the square peg, and you got a round hole there, it can be challenging. So it's like we have to prepare people going into this. Like, the fun part is shopping for the house and looking for stuff, but then the not fun part happens after that.
Yeah. And I think that people, I have to remind people on the agent side very often, the lender is trying to give you this loan.
Oh, yeah, we want to do the loan.
They don't make any money unless they do the loan.
Yes.
So like, they're on your side.
100%.
So stop getting offended when they ask you these questions. Just answer them.
Yeah.
So the lender can help you figure out how to make this work.
Yes.
And they're coming to me like, oh man, like I don't know if this is the right person. And it's like, what do you mean? The next person is not going to be as nice or have as much personality. Come on.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want the house or not?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So going into 2025. So we know 2023, 2024, again, to put it in context, historically, were 2 of the worst years that we've had in real estate in a very long time. Yeah. And, regardless of what you see from builders and, that was the thing that I think people didn't realize too, is the amount of builder transactions that occurred in the market. I mean, I think we were sitting somewhere between 25 to 30% of the purchases the entire country were new builds.
Yeah.
And in a typical year, that's, 10 to 15%.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right. And people don't realize that there's a big shift when you have new builds versus existing homes that get sold. And you would think, oh, well, the homes are higher quality, which is not the case. Debatable in many cases. There isn't always a situation where, it seems like they're throwing this money at you, whether it be for incentives or lower rates or all that kind of stuff. But don't be fooled by that because nobody gives you money for free, right? They're not handing you money for free. They are now. It may help you like right then, right?
Yeah.
You don't have enough cash, or you want to get your payment lower. I'm not hating on anybody that wants to take advantage of this stuff.
Yeah.
But what I think consumers don't fully understand is when you go into a new neighborhood and you're buying a house, it's a new build. At that time for those comps, the homes are selling in that area because they're driving sales, right?
Yeah.
So there are going to be 3 or 4 or 5 homes that sold in that exact same neighborhood with that exact same builder that you're working with, that so your house is going to hit the value that they're trying to hit in
Yeah.
most cases,
Yeah.
right? The issue comes in when you try to move in, say, less than 5 years,
Mhm.
because then those homes have already sold, and now we're pulling comps from neighborhoods around that,
Yeah.
right, that have sold more recently, because it's more important in the recency
Yeah.
of a sale than it is in the proximity in most cases.
Correct.
I mean, it's a balance, but so now you bought your house for 450 or something like that, and you think, all right, I'm gonna sell it for 460 or whatever, and then they come back and it's 440. And
Yeah.
you're like, wait a minute, how is my house worth less? Well, it's not that the market declined, it's just that the values were established in a different time than when you're trying to move, because they have to build in all those incentives into the price.
Yeah.
Builders are gonna make money. They're
Absolutely.
not gonna lose money, right?
Absolutely.
So what's your experience with dealing with that?
Man, I had a recent I had a recent experience with this development. I learned a lot of this development, in case you can't tell. So we bought a piece of property for a few $100,000, right? And this is the property we're going to develop. Okay. And we bought it in two parcels, right? There was a smaller parcel, about 4 acres, and there's another parcel about roughly about 16, a little less than 16 acres, right? So the 4 acre parcel, I think it appraised for like 180,000, right?
Yeah.
For 4 acres. And the other one, it was way more than that, probably triple that amount, close to.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we go to the loan, when things turn and the bank says, hey, we need you to pay this down, pay this off, whatever, right? And we are going to get an appraisal to see, hey, is there money in the equity that we've put into this, to see if we can kind of restructure the numbers. We had put in both parcels together for a total of 19 and a half acres.
Okay.
It barely appraised higher than the 4 acre parcel 2 years prior.
Ugh.
The reason being is there were no comps in
Yeah.
the area at the time that
Because
we were
houses
trying.
weren't turning.
Right.
Yes.
There were significant amount of higher priced sales, but they were so far away
Yeah.
that they weren't necessarily comparable.
Yeah.
And so the only things that they had comparable to our size parcel were selling for way cheaper.
Yeah.
And so I was screaming at the top of the lungs to my lender, like, hey, let's use common sense here. I'm next to a school. There's been nothing but new development all around me, right? But there haven't been enough land sales. How does this property appraise for a few $100,000 less than what it appraised for just 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Did the land just disintegrate in 2 years? Like, did everything catch on fire in 2 years and now it's no longer usable? No.
Yeah.
So let's use common sense. But they had to go by the numbers. Common sense was kind of out of the window.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, we had to put a significant amount of money up to pay that loan down significantly in order to keep our deal going.
Yeah.
And it was very frustrating.
Yeah.
It was very frustrating. It was very stressful time too. So it's just what you said is kind of spot on. Hey, the recency of sales is almost sometimes more important than, the proximity of where it is, because I was in a hot location, a hot market with nothing but good stuff going on around it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it changes too, because it's, I mean, and again, it can't be understated how much of a dramatic shift just in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Like to go from average housing market to just the craziest housing market we've ever seen.
Yeah.
Back to the lowest housing market,
Yeah.
the worst performing market that we've ever seen. And the crazy thing about it is home prices really didn't fall.
No.
Like
No.
if someone were to tell you the volume of sales dropped to a 30-year low, like prior to 2024, like if you're sitting there in 2019 and you're like, housing sales dropped 30%, to a 30-year low in 2024.
Yeah.
You're like, damn, values must have gone down 10%, right? No, they went up.
Yeah. And what you're finding is just more available inventory out there that's been on the market for longer. That's what I'm seeing today. It's like people are like, well, we can get these prices. Well, people, there are some things that the seller will do to get their home sold, but it typically does not include dropping the price drastically.
Right.
It includes, hey, we'll negotiate some concessions in here. We'll pay for some things that we typically wouldn't pay for. We'll drop it a little bit, but if you want it that much, you're just not going to get it. We're just not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, and I it's a thing where the inventory issue has been there for a long time,
Yeah.
and you don't just climb out of it overnight.
Yeah.
And it's funny. My favorite thing, because I'm probably more active on Twitter than I should be, but my favorite
Is Twitter still Twitter?
X, sorry,
I was
whatever.
going to say, you got me confused. Did I miss
mean,
something?
no, but come on, like it's like calling Prince the sign. Like it's Prince. Come on,
Just curious.
it's there's still a bird floating around out there. Anyway,
Wait, while we're on that, is Threads like the alternative of Twitter? Like, is this? I'm still trying to figure this out. Like, I'm clearly probably showing my age, but I see a lot of Threads now, and I'm like, is this supposed to be like the rival of the people who don't want to be on X?
I think it was a thing that Zuckerberg created.
Okay.
So we can fall down a rabbit hole a little bit here, but
Yeah.
but the
I probably
whole
shouldn't have said
social
that.
media landscape, right, is a bunch of either you, or let's just say prior to Trump getting elected or
Okay.
becoming enrolled, and maybe even prior to Elon taking over,
Yeah.
was social media was very much a many social media platforms were very much an echo chamber of don't say anything that could possibly hurt someone's feelings, because if you do, you're cooked.
Yeah.
Right.
You're out of there.
And so Elon comes along and buys X, which whatever you think of that dude, okay, and some of the stuff he's done recently, I'm a little perplexed by, but like I think we need to. I know we're a troll here, but let's tone it back a little bit. It's been a little surprising, but anyway, whatever you think of the dude and his 19 kids or whatever he has, when he bought X, it was a dramatic shift in how the public was able to express themselves in a way that without fear of getting, forever banned.
Yeah.
Now, we live in a country of free speech. We
Yeah.
always have. Like that's, you can't, you can't yell fire in a crowded room, and you can't threaten people online and threaten to kill them. But otherwise, you can say whatever you want. Now, there's always consequences for your words, right? There's consequences for everything, and you're going to piss some people off, or you're going to be on the side of other people or whatever. But you still have to be able to say what's on your mind, because the only way to combat bad ideas is to have other ideas, to have better ideas.
Sure.
And so if you don't have a place where you can share that stuff, and COVID was a prime example, and we all know what was going on during that. And we all know what's happened since then and all the information that's come out. So when X was created, or when he took over, there was like this flood of, oh my gosh, now we can say whatever we want, do whatever we want. Well, then everybody who could be offended by something was all of a sudden like, well, I can't be on this platform anymore.
Yeah.
Because it's just like, I might cry today. And so they needed a place to go. So Zuckerberg at the time, who I don't like, because he just flows wherever the wind blows, he decided to say, okay, well, I'm going to create an alternative version to Twitter, or X, where you can be, where everybody's nicer. Right. And it's the same format or setup, but we're all just happier and nicer. And it's kind of like there's another one called Blue Sky. Have you heard of that one?
I've heard of it, but I don't know.
It's like the, super blue version of like the far left version of Twitter or whatever, or not Twitter, but that kind of platform.
Yeah. Are people nicer on Threads? It just seems like just a different platform for people to say the same stuff.
Yeah, it's not. I mean,
that's just from what I've seen. I've seen very little, but still.
Well, it pulls from your Instagram feed. So if you go to my Instagram page, it's all real estate.
Yeah.
So when I go to Threads, it's all real estate.
Okay.
So it's all the same. It's just, instead of pictures, I mean, I think all the platforms are kind of homogenizing. It's funny because they all start out a lot different, but as soon as TikTok came out with all of their 1 minute, 2 minute videos, then Facebook had Reels, and Instagram had Reels, and YouTube got YouTube Shorts, and now LinkedIn has friggin' shorts and videos on there. Yeah,
short interviews.
Yeah, I mean, it's
short resume.
Exactly. Our attention span is so terrible. Like, we grew up in a different era. I'm a little bit older than you, but not much.
Yeah.
And, you don't want to do the good old day thing. Like back in my day, my kids hate that shit. But we didn't have, like, I always use the long car ride.
Yeah.
Right. If we were taking a trip to see grandma, or we were driving to the beach or whatever.
Yeah.
You're in a car for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Right. There's no phone. Right.
Yeah.
Best case, you had a Walkman.
Yeah.
And you could listen to music. But even then, you're looking out the window, you're whatever with your thoughts,
Yeah.
So our attention span, I could sit down and watch a movie and get into the movie and take a 3 hours journey and be fine.
Yeah.
But now, you can't, because I can't get my kids to sit down and watch a movie. I can't get my wife to sit down and watch a movie.
Yeah.
I can barely, sometimes I get there and I'm like, all right, what are we doing here? Like, I'm already bored with this. it's sad. It really is what it's turned into, but that's what it is. And that's why like the news cycle's so crazy, because stuff happens, bad things happen, and then another bad thing happens 2 days later, and all of a sudden we're moved on. It's like we had, perfect example. We had the Maui fires.
Yeah.
We had the hurricane rip through North Carolina.
Yeah.
Then we had California get destroyed with the fires. Right. And then yesterday we had the plane crash.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And all of those things, if you were to ask somebody on the street, like, you remember, Maui, they're like, what?
Yeah.
How long ago was that? It was like 4 months ago. Like, wasn't even that long.
Yeah.
Right. But we just move on because this world is created for us.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree, man. I remember when we were in school as a kid, I was in private school, probably up to about 6th grade. And we had to we had to have our hands folded on the desk, right? As our teacher would instruct us throughout the day. And this is how we had to sit. I mean, hands folded on the desk. And if you were slouching with, hands swinging or whatever, you actually got in trouble.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, man, my kids would feel like that was prison right now if they had to actually like sit and pay attention. You go into school now, like I still have kids in elementary. So if you go into school now, you'll see like there's a small group over here where they're doing like cutting out things. And then there's a group over here where they're on the computer doing their lesson. And then there's a group over here on the floor that's reading. And then the guys in the back have earned their points. So they're doing the treasure chest and then they're playing the games on the floor. And it's just like, this is controlled chaos, but it's chaos. Like there was no way I would have been allowed to do any of these things in school. So it is part of how the society has evolved to how we're going to teach
and now
ourselves.
Now in high school, we're punching out teachers. I'm ashamed to say that a lot of my Instagram and Twitter feed is filled of fights. I don't know why. Like, I guess because
the algorithm.
Yeah, the algorithm.
You look at it longer, so it's like,
oh,
here's another one. Feed the beast.
Like, oh, golly, that guy knocked out cold. Like, I see too much of that. But it's like, man, there are kids everywhere just knocking people out for no reason in classrooms. And then we wonder why we can't get teachers to come. And we wonder why we can't have umpires. And
I'm a firm I am a firm advocate of the teachers need to be paid like triple. They need to be paid triple of what they're getting paid now.
Yeah.
To raise y'all's bad kids, because my kids are good. But y'all's bad kids, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
These kids are horrible.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, come on, man. Like, so yes, they need to be paid triple. Their lives are in danger dang near every day.
Yeah.
They have to deal with the sickness. They have to deal with your kid's attitude. And then if they respond to your kid's attitude, they get fired. Like, oh man, like.
Well, and it sucks. And it's kind of back on the topic a little bit of working and making money and trying to support yourself. I mean, we're, when my parents grew up and when not so much when we were kids, but I think because that's when it started to change. But, in the 60s and 70s, dad could work and mom could stay home and take care of the kids. Yeah. And they could live a really good life that way. You could have a house, you could have a car. You didn't need two, because there wasn't shuttling from here to there. You stayed in your neighborhood. And look, I'm not, I don't want to get into the whole gender role of who needs to do whatever. Like make your money to support the family. But one person could support a family of four very relatively easily. Right. And they had pensions and they had jobs. And so there was so much more of a focus on taking care of people. Well, now we live in a world where, because everything is so expensive, and because we also have created this place where we have to have all this stuff, right? And I'm just as guilty as everybody else. I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. That we're in a place where you have to have both people in the household working to some extent in many cases, which means they're not there monitoring the kids every day. And because they've created iPads and cell phones and social media, like, as a parent, and I did it too. Yeah. But you're driving down the road and your kid's screaming and kicking the back seat and they're hungry and they want this and that, whatever. And you hand them that screen and you're just like, oh, I just need 30 minutes. Yeah. Like, just leave me alone for a little bit. Yeah. Right. You give them that, and then it becomes a habit for them, and they're in front of it all the time, and their attention spans are short, and they don't listen, and they get influence from other places other than just in the household. Yeah. And then we send them to school and we're like, not my problem.
There you go.
Like, you figure it out, you know? And then we allow, the school systems and other parents allow the kid or the parents to blame the problems on the schools. Yeah. Oh, it's the school issues. If we just fix the schools and the teachers, then our kids wouldn't be terrible. Yeah. And none of that is the case. Yeah. It all starts at home.
Yeah. You gotta educate your kid. You have to parent one way or the other. You gotta either parent your child at home, or you got to parent that screen that you gave them and make sure that what they're watching is something that's going to actually give them some value of life, as opposed to watching nonsense and things that are sending subliminal messages and injecting hate and stuff like that into their day-to-day discourse, so that way when they go to school, they're spewing all that stuff out because that's all they've been watching all day.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's like, man.
Well, and that's a good segue to a certain extent, because I think when it comes to doing your job as
Yeah.
an agent or a lender or anybody that's a professional of any kind, that all of this stuff that we're hating on right now, these tools that we have, at the end of the day are just tools.
Yeah.
And you create the world that you want,
Right.
right? But you have to be deliberate about it.
Sure.
Because if you just float through the day and you just get up out of bed, open your phone, start scrolling through TikTok or Facebook or Instagram or whatever you look at,
Yeah.
Twitter, whatever, that sets the tone for your day, because now you're just mindlessly
Yeah.
flowing through stuff, and you're going to see whatever your brain decides to look at for a little bit.
Sure.
Whereas if you decide to wake up in the morning and you say, okay, I got to get my body going, I got to get my mind going, and handle a few things that put me in the right mindset, then I can start getting on my devices and electronics and emails and all this other stuff. But anytime I look at social media, or anytime I scroll through Twitter, or anytime I look at Instagram or whatever, I have to be conscious of when I see something related to my business,
Mm-hmm.
or when I see something related to a way that I want to be. Right? I know people. I was one of them that got bogged down, or gets gross about, like, oh, you just gotta push through and work hard, blah, 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 the
Yeah.
motivational stuff. Like, that kind of wore me out. But it works, man. It
Yeah,
really
man.
works.
I mean, just being intentional about your day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a super huge part of your success. If you're experiencing success, you talk to a lot of these people who are doing good numbers and they have a great business. They have a system and they stick with it,
Yeah.
and they're very intentional about what they spend their time on. And for us realtors who have to be plan ahead, 3 months ago is you get to see what you did 3 months ago
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
You can see what you did 2 months ago today. And if you're not disciplined enough to do, the things that are going to get you business in the future, it's going to be really hard for you to navigate when the market is good and when the market is down. And, it's just going to be really hard for you to have any bit of consistency in your business.
Yeah.
So for, like we said, you got to parent all the time. You got to make sure that you're available. You got to be an agent all the time and make
Yeah.
sure you're available as well. And I think that's one of the separators for, people who just get in and think it's going to be a bunch of money. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. You got to be intentional about your day.
Well, and for anybody, that hears this and is like, I try to caveat things all the time and say, like, we all know the right things to do.
Yeah.
But many of us just don't do them. And
Yeah.
I'm just as guilty as, like I said,
And it's honestly, it's a little harder nowadays because, like, especially the social media takes up so much of your time.
Yeah.
Right. But for us, a big part of our business is social media.
Yeah.
And so that being intentional, like when I get on Instagram in the morning, is to make sure that the people know that I'm still a realtor.
Yes.
And that I'm still good at my job and I can still help you get educated on real estate things.
Yeah.
And you try to do that without getting caught up in, oh, this popped up. Let me watch that, which turns into that 30 minutes gone.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So it's difficult. I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm great at it.
Yeah.
I do well enough, but
Yeah.
I could be much better with
Yeah.
my time management
Yeah.
when dealing with social media promotions and marketing and things like that. But you need it. So
Yes.
you can't just eliminate it.
Well, and that goes back to being intentional in that if you, like, let's say, for example, you decide that Instagram's going to be your thing.
Mhm.
Like, you're going to, you spend all your time on Instagram or whatever social platform, like that's what you're going to
Yeah.
do. Well, then learn how to use Instagram.
For sure.
Learn the best methods, learn, what gets the most engagement, learn how to communicate with other people, DM, like, comments, share, all the stuff that goes in there, make your videos, do whatever. So, and then when you have downtime,
Yeah.
right, and you're sitting at your kid's game before it starts, and instead of just scrolling through, just doom scrolling, whatever they want to call it, go, like, watch a 3-minute YouTube video about how to best practices for Instagram or whatever. Just spend your time educating yourself.
Here's a question for you.
Sure.
I'm very guilty of this.
Okay.
And I don't know why, but it's just how I am. And I want to know if you're the same, right? So when you're watching a video, right, or you're watching something that you like, or you see something that you like on one of these platforms, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, right? are you very I'm super like ultra selective about what I'm gonna double tap and heart.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Like I am like, it could have made me laugh for 20 minutes, but if I don't like that person, I ain't double tapping. You got to work to get these likes over here.
Well, not only that, but see, what I don't know that everybody knows that it's not the double tap per se. I mean, that's like putting it on steroids, but it's how long you spend. Like they're watching your eyes. They're seeing how long you spend on that particular thing. I mean, it is just examining everything. It's a psychological tool. And if you're like, man, I never liked fight videos. I don't watch, like, I don't subscribe or follow those channels or like them. Why do they keep showing up on my, because that's the one I'm like, what? And then I watch it and I'm like, damn, so yes, like, I'm also actually, I'm kind of the opposite. I'm like, if I get too many of these that start coming up, then I start the most boring post that I'm not really wanting to see, but it's like real estate related or finance related. I'm like, share,
try to
I'm like, comment. I'm like,
even it out a little bit.
I'm like, I need more of that.
Balance. Yes. I feel like I'm like super snobbish and uppity when it comes to like, I'm going to actually acknowledge that this was good, and I just want to know if other people are like that too, because it's like, all right, this could be somebody that has done something, or it's just you posted something that somebody said and it was hilarious, but I don't really fool with you like that.
Yes.
You ain't getting my like that.
Yeah.
And then when I do, it's like a Bruno Mars concert. It's like, oh, that performance was amazing. Here's your like.
Here's your button for the day. Congratulations. Aren't you so happy that I liked your post? Look at you. So lucky.
You should feel good as a content creator.
You walk away.
You got me today.
You got me today. Good for you.
So it's good to know I'm not the only one out there that does that.
No, I definitely use it as a weapon for sure, to either change my algorithm or try to boost something with somebody or whatever the case may be. But I think that's honestly, I think that's somewhat of a guy thing to some extent, and that we just kind of scroll through like, okay, that was good, that was good, but we're not going to take any action to like actually, whereas like women more so, like especially my wife, I'm sure you're like this because you and your wife are friends on Facebook, but half of my alerts are my wife commenting on someone's post. Susan commented on this post. Susan said this. Susan did that. And so like, that's half of my like alert, my notifications or whatever is her doing stuff because she's like, oh, this is great. And this is amazing. And congratulations. And, and then I feel like a bad person. I'm like, man, like I am happy for them. I'm glad that, they got all district or that they won their tournament or whatever, but I saw it and I'm like, cool. And then I move on.
It's like out of sight, out of mind. Appreciate it. Good job. See you later.
I had a conversation with a buddy of mine yesterday. We hadn't spoken in a while and we were just chit chatting about some stuff. And he was like, man, I it's my fault. We need to keep up. I should have called you and chatted some more. And I'm like, man, it's me too. Like, I could have called less. I was like, you called me last. I didn't call you, this next time I called you. But it's also like, I think guys a little bit more, we're like, we could not talk to each other for 6 months and then we just fall right back into it. And there's not a lot of like, well, you didn't call me.
We had to like figure out why and work through our our distance.
Right. We gotta
like,
go.
All right, hey man, what's going on?
I'll talk to you a little bit, but you didn't like any of my posts or say hello to me or whatever, It's like, look, man, we all lead busy lives, so we just don't get and I think that's the same methodology when it comes to like social media scrolling. It's like, we're like, oh, cool. But I'm not going to like overly go, and
is it counterintuitive? Like we're supposed to be social and we're like, I know for me, I always feel like this. I'm like, all right, well, I ain't commenting on that, even though I should have, I probably could have, but I had some insight, but I don't want to do it, and like, am I not being social on social media?
I think so. Cause I deal with the same thing. I'm generally, I think you and I are similar to a certain extent, but I think this is a lot of guys in that, like, if we're going to go somewhere, we're going to go hang out, whatever. Cool. Let's go. Let's go to a concert. Let's go to this party. Let's go do whatever. Right. Like I'm down. Like I'll never be like, I don't want to go. Like, let's go. But am I going to actively seek that out and try to like do that? No, not really. Right. Yeah. So it's like when I would go through phases where I would get on Twitter because I'm like, all right, I want to, like with the podcast stuff, like I want to grow the podcast. So I'm going to comment and like other people and share their stuff and engage and all this other shit. And then I'll get on there and I start commenting and sharing and engaging and all this stuff. Well, I mean, it comes back like I'm getting alerts, And then like, I'll do that for like a week
and then it's over.
And then I'm exhausted.
That's a lot of work.
I just don't care anymore. I just don't care. I don't want to engage with this person. He
That
keeps
is
going
me.
back and forth. I don't even know you, but
That's
I'm
me.
just trying to. And it's the same thing on all the platforms. It's
Me.
just, I just don't care that much, you know?
That's me. That's me. So it was good to know that I'm not the only one out there
Nah.
just absolutely failing at life with engaging on social media on a regular basis.
Look, it's never not going to be important.
Yeah.
And it is, you know, a thing that we both know, and we both preach to people that we talk to about it. And we're hot and cold on it, just like everybody else.
Yeah.
We do it a lot sometimes. We don't do it at all sometimes. And that's how it goes. But the importance and the critical nature of what it is
Yeah.
can't be understated.
Yeah.
Or overstated. And it's a situation where if you're not, I mean, we talked about this before we got on. Like if you're not in front of people on a regular basis and you're not telling them what you do, and it doesn't have to be call me I'm a realtor, call me I'm a realtor, call me I'm a lender, or call me I'm a lender. It doesn't have to be that. It could just be like I'm alive.
Yeah.
I exist.
Yeah.
Here's some shit that I'm doing today.
Yep.
And oh, by the way, you know,
yeah, give me a call.
Give me a call if you need something, right? Like that's all it is. And I think we all overthink it because we want it to be perfect and great. And we want it to be, you know, the best script and the best lighting and the, you know, the funniest post and all this kind of shit. And don't get me wrong. I mean, that plays a role, but consistency and doing it on a regular basis, even if you fall off the wagon from time to time, like I did, not doing this for 2 months. You just got to get back on the horse, man. Because the critical nature of what you're doing, if you're selling to people, whatever it is that you're selling, homes, mortgages, you know, carpentry, it doesn't matter. If you're doing that, people spend most of their time on their phone, looking at social media. And if you're not on there on a semi-regular basis, and then you wonder why business is slowing down because you're not going out either.
Man, I'll tell you, this is a little bit off topic, but I had it made me feel so terrible about my prospecting efforts. I had we had like a Uber Eats or something delivery, a food delivery to the house, right? And I just happened to be like walking out of the house to get something out of the garage when they were, you know, pulling up to the house. So, you know, I met them in the driveway. Hey, thanks. Appreciate that. Got the food, whatever. They take their picture. Boom. Proof that I actually gave it to you. And then as we're walking away, it's like, hey, here you go too. You know, just so you know, we do like paint, drywall, all this good stuff. And I'm like, God dang it. If the person delivering my fast food is willing to prospect and promote their business,
that's a hustler.
And all I'm doing is sitting here eating fries. Like, I gotta be better. I'm like, man, I never even thought about that. Like, I don't even know if that's allowed.
Do you know who David Goggins is?
I think so.
Okay, so he's a Navy SEAL guy. He got big from being on Rogan, but he is like, he does a lot of speaking events and stuff, and basically like he runs ultra marathons, and he's like, you know, he has the world record in pull-ups. Like he's just like this super like workout. But he's like, you know, he says fuck all the time. Like he's like, fucking do it. You know, like there's no sugarcoat stuff. Anyway, and I've heard this before, but I just heard it from him recently. He was talking about, because he was in the military, he's talking about battle. He's like, you know, if there's 100 soldiers on the battlefield, he's like 20 of them just might as well not even be there. He's like 80, you know, or the 60 of them are there or like 70 of them are there, you know, just because they have to be, and they're going to die at some point. He's like, there's 10 guys on the battlefield that are there fighting. And he's like, and there's one of those guys that's a warrior. And he's like, I'm trying to be that one guy. And that's his whole mentality. And it's like you have to constantly think to yourself, okay, what do I got to do to be just a little better today? A little bit better today. Right. Like that dude handing you his card. It's like, hey man, I'm driving Uber Eats or whatever. Right. And some of us would go, well, I mean, I don't want this guy to call me and do this because I'm delivering food or whatever. And yet that dude's going, I'm hustling, I'm doing something.
And from my perspective, I'm like, man, if I need something, I'm going to call him, because if he's willing to give me his business and give me his opportunity, or try to get an opportunity for me while he's doing this, that means he really cares about this. So I want that guy. You know? So,
and there's not a lot of people out there that are like that, because, you know, we get comfortable in our roles, we get comfortable in our world, and we don't want to, you know, rock the boat or swallow a little bit of pride and be
Sure.
like, hey man, I need some, I do this, I do that, I do all these
Yeah.
things. And it's so freeing, I think, for a lot of those people, because when you put your head in the right spot, and it's not I hate the mindset stuff, but I do. And more and
There's something
more,
to be said about it,
when
though.
you look at quantum physics,
Yeah.
like if you just want to get into the science of it,
Yeah.
when you can sit there and go, okay, so you're telling me that we know that particles, okay, that exist in the world,
Yeah.
that when they're observed, they behave a certain way,
Yeah.
and when they're not observed, they behave another way,
Yeah.
right? So that means just pure observation on something and focus on something changes the way that it behaves. It literally changes matter,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like, this isn't science fiction. This is real. So if that's the case, how far do you have to go till you get to the place of, if I think that I'm going to be successful, and I think that I'm going to close this deal, and I think that I'm going to wake up tomorrow and go do my workout, and I'm that person, is it unrealistic to think that you won't be that person?
I don't think so. I mean, like, ultimately, let me dumb it down for our audience, because that was like high level stuff, and we usually are not that much high level. Okay, so I relate everything to youth sports. So for me, that's like me telling my sons, okay, well, you have to see this shot going in
Yeah.
mentally
Visualization.
before you shoot it.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you, every time we step up to this free throw line and you shoot this basketball and you visualize it going in and you shoot it the right way, and we shoot enough of those every day,
Mhm.
eventually you're just going to be automatic from
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
It's going to be second nature muscle memory,
Yep.
because you've already trained your mind to that. This is what's going to happen when I do these things.
Yeah.
And you still get some of the world's best trainers in that sport and other sports that say that,
Yes.
you have to visualize, you have to see this happening for it to actually happen.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for that.
Well, there's actually, I don't remember if it was either Harvard or Stanford did a study. It was probably 10 years ago, but they took 3 control groups, and this was athletics specifically. And
Yeah.
I think it was free throws. So they did free throws. They had one group that didn't, they basically shot free throws.
Yeah.
Then they had one group that didn't shoot any free throws at all for like a week. They had one group that practiced shooting free throws like every day,
Mhm.
and then they had one group that didn't touch a basketball, but just sat and thought intentionally
Mhm.
about what it looks like to shoot a free throw, to see the ball going in. They were very specific about how to work through the process of thinking about it.
Yeah.
And when they came back and did like the next round of shooting, the guys that shot every day only did just slightly better than the ones that never picked up a basketball, but thought about it in their brain and I mean like intentionally.
Yeah.
Like, not just like, oh, that'd be nice, but like, where's my form? Where's my elbow go? How do I push through? I see the ball going through the net, not hitting the backboard, like that kind of stuff. Like, and it was, I think they had, it was something, it was a small study. It was,
Yeah.
maybe a couple 500 people or something like that. But they showed, like, obviously the guys that shot every day were better,
Yeah.
but it was like statistically insignificant.
So what you're saying is, I need to get my son to visualize the Kyrie Irving double behind the back in and out step back into the jump shot every day, and then he might be able to pull that sucker off in the game.
Maybe. I'm not saying he won't.
Or he'll be slightly worse than the guy who's practiced that every
He'll be
day.
closer, right? He'll be closer to it. I mean, I tell my kids that all the time. I'm like, look, whether you believe that thinking positively and being optimistic and not focusing on like the doom of life, right? Even if you think that's mumbo jumbo, right? Even if you think that's voodoo and it doesn't work and that's stupid or whatever, fine.
Yeah.
But if there's even a chance that it works, why not?
Yeah.
Why not do it?
Just give it a shot.
Give it a shot. See how it goes. Because
that could happen.
Statistically, you're probably going to do better anyway.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like the people that are like, well, like, I don't know if I believe in God or believe whatever, but I mean, might as well, because hedge my bets, right? I mean, it's kind of the same idea. Like, it doesn't hurt to try. So if you're going into 2025 and you're trying to figure out, okay, how the hell am I going to get out of what happened in 24 and 23 and try to support my family, pay my bills so I don't have to change professions because I love doing this job, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
Yeah. Ultimately, you first thing you need to do is what we just talked about. Visualize what it looks like for you to be on the other side of that and be successful.
Yeah.
You definitely got to be intentional.
Yes.
You definitely got to be intentional about making sure that you're available. Like the NFL says, best ability is availability, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to be that if you're going to be an agent, you're going to be a lender, you're going to be, whatever it is, title rep that's trying to get more business. Like you got to be intentional about that also.
Yeah.
And then you got to make sure that you plan for the future.
Yeah. If we've learned anything,
we've learned nothing else.
Years.
Like, hey, when you do get to that point where this stuff is rolling in and it looks good and it feels good, and we've gotten to a spot where we've gotten almost, or maybe we are comfortable, let's make sure that we make some preparations for those times that we're not going to be as comfortable.
Yeah.
I think those, and then you have to know social media. You have to be intentional about that too. So I think we went like around the world in a whole bunch of different things today, but I mean, if you miss those there they are. Like that, and we're sponsored by Tropicana.
Hey, Tropicana,
we're actually
back.
not, but we would love to be. So
there.
Tropicana, if you're listening, I guess I gotta get the name right. If you're listening, we would love an NIL deal or something. We are here and open for business.
We got kids that need to pay for college.
I'm not even a host of this podcast, but
I like it. Keep shilling.
Try to get these sponsorships.
Well, and just to because we talked about so many things today, and we're almost right at an hour here. I do want to, because I put a bunch of stuff in the description. Oh, we're going to discuss this. I think we got to maybe 1% of it, but I do want to say, because I get the question all the time: what are going to happen with rates and what's going to happen with the housing market? Okay.
Yeah.
Here's my opinion on it. My opinion on it is that if you're expecting rates to drop dramatically anytime soon, I would not bet on that. And I would also say that it's possible, but the only way that it's possible is if we have a significant economic collapse of some kind.
Yeah.
And that's not anything that anybody should wish for, because we don't want that. And I would also say that, Mr. Trump, President Trump, who's in office right now, he, for no other reason other than his own self-interest, right, wants to make sure that the American economy is highly successful during his presidency, and he will do whatever it takes. Maybe do stupid stuff that he shouldn't do. I don't know, things he shouldn't probably do, but that's going to be his goal. I assure you of that. So to expect or hope for a collapse even puts it at a greater unlikelihood, because the person that's in charge right now, that's the last thing that he ever wants to happen. Not that anybody wants that, but so I wouldn't expect rates to change any dramatic. I mean, I think best case, you maybe get by the end of the year, if we're sitting in the low sixes, we're probably doing pretty good.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And when it comes to home sales and market shifting, I think it has picked up, because I think we're living in the norm of this is where rates are. Right.
Yeah.
This is where home prices are.
Yeah.
We're not waiting any longer because I got to move. I got to change my job. I got to get a bigger house or downsize or whatever the need is. So I do expect transactions to pick up.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't expect them to pick up, dramatically.
Yeah. I have seen an increase in buyers and sellers on both sides. I have seen a significant increase. So the activity is there. The transactions are there. Will it be what it was? Probably not, but it is significantly greater than what it was 4 months ago.
Yes. Yes. And I think if anything, the hope we want to have is, stock market keeps going up.
Yeah.
We want jobs to stay plentiful, and we want the economy to do well, regardless of who's leading it, because it's better for all of us.
Yeah.
And, and inflation is still a concern. It's still an issue. And I think if there's two ways we could go, where you could say you're either going to have a collapse or you're going to have inflation go through the roof, I would bet on inflation going through the roof.
Yeah.
That's where I'd put my money. I hope we stay in between that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick an extreme, I would pick the economy doing really, really well, but things being really, really expensive.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind, when you're making financial decisions.
Yeah, for sure. And if you learn nothing else, discipline y'all's bad kids at home.
Yes.
Don't let them kids go to school on these teachers that are not making enough money. Take them kids home and discipline them, please.
Please.
Do not bring them bad kids to school. I'm tired of seeing it.
I'm going to wear the bring back the bullies t-shirt. That's what I'm going to start. I'm okay. Like, can we have just can we get the happy medium of I don't want anybody getting hurt, but it's okay to make fun of people. Like if you wear some stupid pants, tell them, it's okay.
How are we going to learn if we don't, heed our constructive criticism.
I mean, you know, it's all right. Like, you know, I got picked on as a kid. I picked on other kids. Like, it's part of life. Like,
I roasted a lot of people in my day, so it is what it is. Now my kids roast me, so it's coming full circle.
That's how you learn how not to say dumb shit, right? Because when you say dumb shit, people are like, that was stupid. And then you're like, oh, yeah, I guess it kind of was. My bad.
The delivery wasn't good.
Yeah, but if somebody's like, oh, no, it's okay. We just want to know how you feel. It's like, oh, good. I can say whatever the hell I want. No.
Shout out to Breeze. He gave us gave Mike. He didn't give us a shout out. He gave you a shout out. So maybe you should give him a shout out. I'm not. You know, he didn't shout out to me, so I feel a certain type of way. But we appreciate you watching and listening to our nonsense.
All right, guys. Well, like I said, this was a get back in the saddle episode. You know, we're definitely I'm gonna do more housing stuff. We're gonna continue. I'm not gonna fall off of that, but you know, I want to keep it a little more casual going forward. I like having good conversations with people. That's why I always like having Conrad here, because we can just shoot the shit and talk about a lot of different things. We kind of chase rabbits occasionally, and you know, maybe it's not the most content filled information. I'll still do my market updates every week. So we give a little bit of updates on what's happening. I will start kind of keep those a little more local. So we're going to do a little bit more Texas and DFW and big cities in that area. But you know, I'm back, and we'll keep doing this, and you know, Conrad will keep joining us. We'll have more guests coming your way. But I appreciate everybody that listened, stuck around, and I hope everybody has a great 2025 and Tropicana.
We will tag you, Tropicana. We appreciate the future partnership.
That's right. That's right. Bring it. Let's go. All right, Conrad. Have a good week. Everybody take care, and we'll see you next time.
Appreciate it.
All right.